out of line even just a fraction, my dad was all over him. You know why that was? It's because it was his son. Because that was his son, and sure, he corrected them to some extent, but his son was where the focus was. He corrected him. He was on top of him. He wouldn't let him stray too far. And it's interesting, that is a similar illustration of how God deals with us. 1 Peter 4 and verse 17 says, "For the time has come that judgment must begin at the house of God." Understand what I mean by judgment for believers. God does not condemn his children, but as his children we partake of his chastening, not his condemnation. It's very well explained in 1 Corinthians 11:32. It says, "But when we are judged as believers, we are chastened of the Lord, that we should not be condemned with the world." The fact that you are chastened of God means it should be an indicator light in your mind, I'm not going to be condemned with this world. Because the fact that God chastens me as a son. For unbelievers, these chapters should compel you to recognize God's coming judgment. The end of 1 Peter 4:17, again it said, "The time has come that judgment must begin at the house of God, and if it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of God? And if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the ungodly and the sinner appear?" It says, if we barely make it by the skin of our teeth, what's going to happen to the unsaved man, to the man that has refused God's mercy? Certainly the destruction and the judgment is more than we could ever comprehend. As we consider the book of Jeremiah, in the midst of great judgment, God is merciful. May we never fail to recognize that fact. Question I want to ask you as we leave, specifically for believers, is, do I recognize that God has the right to judge my life? That in the end, he is the one with whom I have to do? Is there something in your life that you know where God was leading or has been leading, and there's been resistance? You've been putting up a fight because that's not the way you wanted to go. Because it's hard. It's not the plan you had. And God is working on your heart. I'd encourage you to submit. Lay your life before him and follow the path that he's designed.